स्टार्ट हो गया जी, थैंक यू। हो गया, ओके। गुड मॉर्निंग स्टूडेंट्स, वेलकम टू द न्यू lecture of IR this week. This week there were not too many very much important events, but though there were a few, like 2022 security strategy of the USA. Then USA made a certain comments regarding Pakistan nuclear assets, and the third was Vladimir Putin's, the Russian president's, his threat that in case Ukraine goes to NATO, there will be a chance of Third World War. Apart from that, US demanded that Saudi must not go for production cut, but that Saudi did not adhere to OPEC, OPEC Plus and all that we will be discussing. But before that, some students, they did send some of their answers. Most were evaluated. 3 copies have not been evaluated yet, I mean 3 answers, and by the end of today they will be evaluated. Actually I was a bit busy, so please consider a gap of perhaps 2 or 3 days in case for getting your questions evaluated. Okay, so now as we will be discussing the answers for the previous week questions, there are some specific suggestions that I would like to make to all of you. You see, whenever you are writing answers, if there are certain comments made on your previous answers that were evaluated, please try to incorporate those suggestions in your next answers. Because if you keep on just writing blindly, believe me, that is not going to be beneficial. क्योंकि क्या होगा कि आप जो इस तरह से आंसर लिखते हो ना, वो आपकी आदत बन जाती है, और आपको पता है कि आदत अगर एक बार लग जाती है ना, बहुत मुश्किल से छूटती है। तो जो भी आपको सजेशंस मिलते हैं, मैं यहाँ किसी का भी नाम नहीं ले रहा, लेकिन प्लीज आप उस चीज को समझिए कि जो भी आपको सजेशन दिया गया, प्लीज उसके अकॉर्डिंग काम कीजिए। कोई भी क्वेश्चन है, इट्स बट नेचुरल कि जो सिर्फ आपको ये मटेरियल दिया गया है उससे आप सफिशिएंटली उस क्वेश्चन को के डिमांड को एड्रेस नहीं कर पाओगे। यू वॉन्ट बी एबल टू एड्रेस द डिमांड कंप्लीटली. So if you are aware about the information, then go for writing the answer. But if you are not aware about the exact demand, content and material, try to read either from your notes or from internet or some other source. And after reading, when you have gained sufficient knowledge, then you write down the answer. And even before writing the answer, please structure it. Because just 2 days back, regarding the DAMP program, one student, he had called me and he said कि सर मैं आंसर तो लिखता हूँ, लेकिन आंसर लिखने के बाद पता चलता है कि ये वाला पोर्शन छूट गया, वो वाला पोर्शन छूट गया. My simple suggestion to him was, and to you is, that whenever you see a question, first take time in framing the structure, and after you have framed the structure, then you start writing the answer. Initially, please do not go for 10-minute or 15-minute timeline. Otherwise, you will be continuously making mistakes. If you have got enough practice, if you have written one mains, then you can definitely go for it. But even then, if there are certain topics that you are not very much comfortable with, please read about it first and then write down the answer. Because this is not the time for going for competition, this is the time for preparation. Presently you have to prepare yourself, and going for that specific topic, it means you are adding to your knowledge base. आप अपने नॉलेज को इंप्रूव करोगे तभी उसे आंसर में लिखोगे ना. क्योंकि अगर आपने सिर्फ 1 साल या 2 साल से प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट किया है, और मैं कह रहा हूं ऐसा नहीं कि अगर आपने पहले से कॉलेज में पढ़ रखा है फिर तो आपके पास नॉलेज बेस अच्छा होगा, लेकिन अगर आप सिर्फ 1 साल 1.5 साल से पढ़ रहे हो, बिलीव मी, यू वॉन्ट बी हैविंग सफिशिएंट नॉलेज इवन इन केस ऑफ IR. when I was teaching in during this men's crash course, I went for the whole gamut of relationships since beginning till date, because whenever a question comes, you just cannot answer that question with current information. You do need a certain background, you do need सम नॉलेज बेस. ये इकोनॉमी जैसा नहीं है, करंट अफेयर्स जैसा नहीं है, साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी भी नहीं है कि आपने पढ़ा उसके बारे में 3 पॉइंट फॉर 3 पॉइंट अगेंस्ट और मामला खत्म. ठीक है. सो प्लीज इसके ऊपर काम कीजिए जो भी क्वेश्चन दिया जाता है. और मैंने इसीलिए क्वेश्चन को रिपीट किया है आज, जो मैंने पिछली बार सिर्फ शिवा को भेजा था. आई हैव रिपीटेड द सेम क्वेश्चन एज क्वेश्चन फॉर प्रैक्टिस. So Shiva, this is a suggestion to you too. Please go through the question, understand the demand, assess yourself. Do you have sufficient knowledge? If you do not have, go back to the notes. I am saying this material will not be sufficient. ये मेरा पर्पस है आपको समझाने के लिए कि अभी जो चल रहा है वो क्यों चल रहा है. But this cannot be the base, this cannot be the foundation, because in foundation we have to read every relationship, every bilateral engagement in detail. इंडिया पाकिस्तान जब हम पढ़ते हैं तो हम अभी किस चीज के बारे में पढ़ते हैं? ठीक है, टेररिज्म है, सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स हैं एंड ऑल. लेकिन जब हमें डील करना होता है, सपोज ए क्वेश्चन कम्स रिगार्डिंग एवोल्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया पाकिस्तान रिलेशनशिप एंड दैट हैज सीन अ शिफ्ट. उस केस में क्या होगा आपको देखना होगा ना, 1950s 1960s में हमारे रिलेशंस कैसे थे. सो दैट इज व्हाई दिस इज माय सजेशन टू यू. इन केस इसके बारे में भी अगर किसी का कोई भी सवाल है, प्लीज अभी पूछ लीजिए, बिकॉज आई सीरियसली वांट यू पीपल टू इम्प्रूव योर आंसर राइटिंग. और उसके लिए इन सारे सजेशंस पर यू विल नीड टू वर्क अपॉन. किसी का कोई भी क्वेश्चन है, कोई भी सजेशन है, प्लीज कमेंट बॉक्स में आप लिखो, आप पूछो. आई एम देयर टू आंसर एंड देन वी विल गो बैक टू टुडेज क्लास, बिकॉज दिस क्लास विल हैव नो मीनिंग अगर आप अच्छे आंसर नहीं लिख पाओगे. क्योंकि अगर आप मेंस क्लियर नहीं करते हो तो इंटरव्यू तक कैसे पहुंचोगे, है ना. पहले मेंस क्लियर करते हैं तभी तो इंटरव्यू में, सो दैट यहाँ जो है वो सीधे का सीधा बात करना है. सो दैट इज वाई फर्स्ट फोकस मस्ट बी ऑन इम्प्रूविंग योर आंसर राइटिंग. ठीक है. आई डोंट थिंक किसी के पास कोई सवाल है. So we'll be going to previous week questions. The question says India's increasing engagements with its diaspora. So this is the first part. Increasing engagements with its diaspora has benefits, okay, but also brings its own set of challenges. तो क्या हमें करना है? What we have to do? In introduction, we can talk about that India has got the highest number of diaspora and you can mention the report of relevant committee. Okay. And then from that can be introduction. Or another introduction can be, in recent times we have seen a shift within India in terms of its engagement with diaspora. Okay. With conduct of events like Pravasi Bharatiya Divas and all. Okay. And then you can directly switch to the body part. In body part, what will be the first part? What are the benefits? Then second part, what are the challenges? And then it says enumerating some recent events. So ये वाला जो पोर्शन है ना, enumerating some recent events, this we can link with the challenges, because directly switching to tackle, this portion will simply be missed. Okay. So suggested structure will be, naturally it will be the introduction part. After introduction, benefits, and then challenges. And in challenges you will be mentioning recent events as example, and then steps or suggestions. Now you see, I have broken this answer, right? So now simply this answer has got 4 parts, and if in each part I can fill in the demand, my answer is written. आपके केस में क्या होता है, आप पहले ठीक है, आप पहले चैलेंजेस लिखोगे, पहले बेनिफिट लिखा, फिर चैलेंज लिखा, एंड वापस यू आर गोइंग बैक टू द बेनिफिट्स. एट टाइम्स दिस पार्ट, रिसेंट इवेंट्स, दिस पार्ट इज सिंपली मिसिंग. और रिसेंट इवेंट का सिर्फ मतलब ये नहीं होता लास्ट 1 ईयर और लास्ट 2 ईयर्स. It can be even last 5 years, last 10 years. Recent events में what are the events that we can mention about? We saw during farmers protest, Canada, Britain, they were quite vocal. Why? Their basis was that we have to address to the concerns of our constituency, because India has got a significant, because both Canada and Britain have got a significant chunk of Indian origin people. So this simply gives them the opportunity that in the name of their constituents they can interfere in our internal matters. Just like presently with respect to Canada, if you are going through the newspaper, the government has said Canada that this referendum 2022 you have to stop it, because that referendum is related to Khalistan, and any such idea goes against India's territorial integrity. Okay. Then recent communal clashes also you could mention. ये तो रिसेंट का है. उसके अलावा क्या है, इवैक्यूएशन यू सॉ ड्यूरिंग यूक्रेन. उससे पहले क्या था, हमने इराक में देखा था, हमने लीबिया में देखा था. So we can mention these challenges, that these are some of the challenges that are because of diaspora and increased engagements. Because if you can recall, you must have read in the notes that during Nehru period there was limited to no engagement with diaspora. Nehru had simply said that since you have chosen a specific nation, be loyal to that specific nation. India did not go forward for helping them. But post Rajiv Gandhi there has been a shift. We saw in case of Sri Lanka also, there was active intervention. Then how diaspora helped in our own economic development. After 1998 nuclear test, when the sanctions were put on India, it was the diaspora that helped us. The government of India issued bonds and the diaspora subscribed to it, addressing our concerns regarding foreign exchange. Okay, these are some of the things you must have read. Since that is not the remit of the topic, I will not be discussing that in detail. Benefits, you are aware, soft power, opportunity for investment, deeper political engagements, because during nuclear deal with USA, it was the Indian diaspora in USA that played a very important role. Today also, be it that Howdy Modi event or even in UK or in Canada, all these parties, all these nations and the parties in specific nations, they know that Indian diaspora is a significant chunk, and if we are addressing the concerns of diaspora, they will be voting us. A Labour Party leader in Britain talking about Hindu phobia. This shows the clout. Okay. So all these contents, they are written in the pointers, and then steps or suggestions. What can be the suggestions? One would be that creating a database or keeping a database, a record of the diaspora, because many a times, or in general even today, the exact number of Indian citizens in those specific nations, it is not there. And that was the challenge we faced during Gulf crisis, as well as during Ukraine crisis as well. Because if you have people, if you have exact tab, you can address the logistical challenges that okay, from here I have to lift, I'll keep them there, and then from there they can be repatriated. But suppose you do not have exact number, you have made arrangements for 250 and suddenly there are 350 people. It is not 5 to 10 kilometer, it goes into thousands of kilometers. So that creates a challenge. So creating a database, that would be a suggestion. Next would be engaging with the people in those specific nations. Sorry, engaging with the governments in those specific nations. Okay, someone has written, will follow. Okay, thanks Shivanya. I don't think Shivanya you have written any answer. You are a regular here, but I don't think you write answers. So you must start writing. Are you providing every week IR on YouTube? Kripa Raj Purohit. I think Shivanya and others, they will address to your question. So yeah, Shivanya, do write the answers. Okay, since you are a regular here, that is my request to you. तो ठीक है. थर्ड क्या होगा? Specific programs in the interest of diaspora, and in the notes many of the programs, No India program and others, they were mentioned. ICWF, Indian Community Welfare Fund. Fourth can be that specific tailor-made program for prospective emigrants, not immigrants but emigrants to specific nations. That suppose you want to go to Britain, so specific courses related to Britain or specific courses related to Canada regarding laws over there, regarding job prospects over there. Okay, so that if you are aware since the beginning, you will be in a better position to take decision. For example, you see in case of this Saudi Arabia or in Qatar, this kafala system, people simply go from there that okay, I am going, I'll be better paid. But when they go, they find that their passports have been seized, and then they start calling back their home or to the government of India, and then the government of India has to intervene to the respective employers to get their passports released. Okay, so all those points they are mentioned. Let me look at the second question. USA's renewed interest in the South Pacific, $810 million support, and then there was summit level meetings for the first time between Pacific Island nations heads and US President. Bodes well not only for the region but for India too. How can Quad help in coordinating engagements? So again, suggested structure would be, first your intro would be USA engagements. You can mention both 810 million support and summit level meeting. Okay. Then benefits for the region, benefits for India, and Quad in coordinating. Okay, so again, structure your answer first. What I have done, have I done anything new? Whatever was there in question, I have broken down the question and I have mentioned over here. And then what I would be doing, I would be simply writing specific points, and all these points they are written in the solution pointers. So this is what I am saying. Read the question once, twice, thrice, 4 times. When you understand the question, break down the question. And once you have broken down, it becomes very easy. Otherwise, question number 2, if you start reading, initially you might face challenge that whether it is talking about USA or it is talking about India. In the latter part again Quad comes. And yes, Quad in coordinating, give a brief intro about Quad here. Okay. And then, and yes, conclude with Quad, since Quad is the new topic and that comes to the latter part of the answer. In your solution, in your conclusion, please mention Quad. So engagement of US in South Pacific anchored with Quad will help in stabilizing and ensuring prosperity to the region. That's all. That's the conclusion. Okay. Kripa Raj Purohit, only live class. What other type of class do you want? Because in live class you can ask questions, I can answer. Apart from that, suppose I upload a video, how is this possible for you to ask questions and for me to answer it? Oh, Shivanya is answering. Nice, thank you. Gaurav Singh, will it be a complete course? You see, yaar, this is not foundation and this is not a crash course. Okay. My purpose is, it is something in between. Generally what happens, and I have explained in the very beginning classes, class first, second or third class, that generally whatever is happening, you just get the information that okay, this is happening, and many a times there is also misleading, because I saw on some of the lecture related to UPSC only that in Third World War India will play the role of Switzerland, and I did not watch the whole video, just the template I saw, and that is absolutely misleading. First of all, for anyone who is into the UPSC, talking about Third World War is an extreme event. We just cannot talk about it. Even we do not, in case of international relations, even talks about Cold War is considered as a no-go area, because that would again lead to polarization of the world. But presently we need the world to remain integrated, and that too comparing India with Switzerland. Look at the locations, look at the geography, look at the comprehensive national park. So just so that you are not misguided, for that this lecture is there, that okay, what are the important events that have taken place, discussing them in detail, giving you questions and explaining those events from UPSC mains perspective. Okay, that is the mandate of this class. Very limited mandate, not a crash course, not a foundation. But yes, in case you ask questions either on the Telegram group or here, your questions will be answered. Okay. So let us just look at the solution pointers. As I suggested about the structure, benefits, influence over the polity. Example, 1, 2, 3 deal, India-US nuclear deal, deeper economic engagement, source of FDI and FPI, India's soft power, and opening of markets for India's service export. You see, service export does not only mean software. When you go to mode 4, it is about people going over there, and that becomes an area of contention between India and any other nation, particularly in case of ASEAN. FTA in goods has been opened, but FTA in services has not been opened. So that is why for services export you must be looking at the comments that had been made by the UK Home Secretary Suella Weberman, and we will be discussing that. Okay. Then challenges, scope for interference, violence and discrimination, and evacuation from conflict zone, and these are some of the suggestions already discussed. Renewed interest, everything I have already explained. Assurance to the small nations about US commitments, balancer against Chinese designs, and economic and technical cooperation. Question was bodes well for the not only for the region, for India too. So in this part we will discuss only about benefit to the region, that is South Pacific region. Question related to India or answer related to India, that will be discussed separately, and that has been discussed over here. Okay, and then quad for coordinating engagements. This was about previous week questions. I hope this has addressed your doubts, have been addressed. Now let us go and look at some event that will be the key focus of global community for the coming week. आज से ही चाइना का 20th मतलब 20वां नेशनल कांग्रेस of Chinese Communist Party that is being held. It takes place once in 5 years, and this decides all the key functionaries. What is so specific this year is that previously there was a 2-term limit, that whosoever the Chinese president, he will not be in position for more than 2 years, more than 2 terms, that is 10 years. But Xi Jinping, he has removed that restriction through a constitutional amendment, and it is expected that he is going to remain in power not only for coming 5 years but perhaps a president for the lifetime. And that is something very disconcerting not only for China but also for the whole world. You must have read in the news about the protests that are going on in China, something that is completely, absolutely unheard of. In Beijing, someone put a banner on the overbridge about criticizing Xi Jinping personally. Then it was about job losses, zero COVID policy, demand for food and all. And immediately even the word Beijing was censored from Chinese social media. Such strong is the control, and that shows the how brittle Chinese government or whole Chinese polity is. But before we go, let us look at the Chinese political structure briefly. We know that it has got one party rule, and it is the party that controls every sphere of life of Chinese people. Even the military, the civil services, the bureaucracy, the judiciary, everything works for the Chinese party, Chinese Communist Party, and that Communist Party is at the center of every sphere of Chinese life. And there are 3 key centers. One is if we look at China, there are 3 key centers of power, or in China the power has been fragmented along these 3 lines. This is party, or you call it political. Just in case of India, as is the parliament. Then comes executive. No judiciary, but here it is military. And in general, this Central Military Commission, it is headed by the General Secretary, so that the military remains within the control of the party. The military is there to serve the party, and it is through this that Chinese Communist Party wields its control across every sphere of China. Even in the past this has happened, and this presently also this is happening. All these three key positions have been held by Xi Jinping. It is being expected that he might cede one of these three posts. However, there are doubts which post he would be ceding, and even if he will be ceding or not, because scholars they are arguing that Xi Jinping might not even anoint his successor, because if he anoints his successor and if that successor starts getting stronger, naturally that will be a threat to Xi Jinping himself. Generally in China what happens was that every president after his first 5-year tenure, for the next 5-year tenure he anoints a successor, and that successor generally would go on to be the next president, so that this would ensure a balance of power. But since he has not anointed anyone, so that is why it was expected that he was going to be the president for more than 10 years, more than 2 terms. And later on in 2018 he went on and ensured that constitution gets amended and 2-term limit was removed. Okay, and we will go back to why that 2-term limit was put in during Deng Xiaoping era. So presently Chinese Communist Party General Secretary, he is also Xi Jinping. Chinese President, he is also Xi Jinping, and Head of Central Military Commission, he is also Xi Jinping. So ultimately he is the person in power. Okay. Now let us go back briefly that why this was put in. You all must be aware about Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution and what a toll it took on Chinese economy and lives of Chinese people. So, and during Mao Zedong, since he was the one who liberated China and who established the centrality of Chinese Communist Party in China, he was the supreme leader. And after Mao Zedong, it is Xi Jinping whose name is mentioned in Chinese constitution while he was alive. Name of Deng Xiaoping is also mentioned. His ideas are also mentioned, but that was added after his death. Not only after he ceded power, but even after his death. So that is why it is being said that after Mao Zedong, Xi Jinping has emerged as the strongest leader in China. So during Mao Zedong, the economy was in tailspin, and even the life of the people during this cultural revolution, many people were persecuted, they were sent to internment camps, they were sent for retraining, and among those people who were sent for retraining, one was the father of Xi Jinping. Okay, so just to get rid of this, Deng Xiaoping brought reforms across the spectrum. In polity, he said that there won't be a individual centric, or there won't be what is this individual centric, but rather than there will be a leadership of the party as a whole. And just to get rid of personality cult, 2-term limit was put. that suppose someone becomes a president for life, naturally the power of that person will increase, and when a power of person is increases and he or she is not held accountable by anyone, not questioned by anyone, there are chances that such an individual will take some wrong decisions based on his or her own personal understanding rather than broader political understanding. So politically the rule was changed and 2-term limit was put. Okay, Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, the presidents who were prior to Xi Jinping, both of them followed this. Then in economy, it was liberalized. Foreign investment that was permitted, and that helped in China leaping from a nation that had a per capita income even below India to today a per capita income that is roughly 10 times of India. Okay, so this reform was brought in, and for Xi Jinping personally, his father, he was reinstated to that internal elite circle. But Xi Jinping, he had understood that how fragile or how frivolous this power is. So he wanted to have a better understanding, and against the wishes of his family in the beginning years, and in the very beginning he was not even accepted into the Communist Party. He had to make 7 to 8 applications, and after then he was accepted. Why? Because of the stigma attached with his family. He went to distant county and he hid the government over there, and slowly he reached up. And before Xi Jinping, it was Hu Jintao who was the president, and during that time Xi Jinping was not the preferred candidate, but I think Bo Xilai or someone, I cannot remember exact name, he was the more I cannot recall exact name, moreover Chinese name, you know how complicated they are. So he was the second preferred choice, but because of tussle between Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin, Xi Jinping was considered as a compromise candidate between the two, because he was not close to any of this, and he was, moreover, he was number 2. And yes, it was Li Keqiang. And he was the prime minister during Xi Jinping's first tenure. So he was the number 1 candidate to be the president. He was protege of Hu Jintao. Okay. So rather than Li Keqiang, it was Xi Jinping who was preferred as a compromise candidate, and he went on to become the president. And when just look at the alignment of stars, I think it is Bo Xilai or something, you can look into the name, it is pretty complicated and you do not need it even from the UPSC perspective. I am just explaining it so that you understand it. Okay. So when Xi Jinping, he became the president, at that time this person, he was a very influential person within the Communist Party, and there were questions regarding murder of British by Bo Xilai's wife, as well as there were multiple charges of corruption, and it was held that this Communist Party, it was not that much stronger at that point of time. Before Xi Jinping, there were multiple factions, each faction, they were controlling their specific areas, and there was a mutual tussle and mutual balance of power. And when this mutual balance of power was there, naturally the president will not be that much strong. So when Xi Jinping came and there were allegations of corruption, and this had certain similarity with Mao's cultural revolution. You know, Mao cultural revolution, it was some sort of paranoia. And in the name of cultural revolution, in the name of re-education, he slowly eliminated all his challengers and they were sent away. Anyone who was of a reformist mindset, he was sent away. And one of them was Xi Jinping's father. So when Xi Jinping was back in power, when he came to power, when he became the president, at that time also there were charges of corruption and there was internal factionalism within the Chinese Communist Party. So like an astute politician, in the name of corruption, he started weeding out all his competitors. Some very senior leaders of the Chinese Communist Party, they were also sent to jails, some were hanged in the name of corruption. So in the name of corruption, slowly and slowly Xi Jinping removed all his challengers, all his competitors, and he, even in the military, he brought in all these reforms, and through this corruption, in the name of corruption, those people were thrown out and all the people who were close to him, they were brought in. And this is how he succeeded in establishing his numero uno power within China. Okay. Now let us go back to some of the information that was, I think I have already explained everything like this. 20th CPC National Congress in China, held every 5 years, and it is the highest decision making body, and all the heads, be it at the provincial level or the central level, they are generally changed, or if some of them, they stay in power after, and that decision is taken by this 5-year CPC National Congress meeting. And this year almost all will be changed except for Xi Jinping. Expected to get unprecedented third term to elect Central Committee. And in China, this Communist Party structure, it is a bit complicated. It is not as simple as that of ours. And in fact, there is some sort of centralization of power. There is National People's Congress, roughly it has 2,980 members, parallel to Indian Parliament, and largest body in the world. Then there are multiple small factions, and its membership, it comes from this Communist Party, its other parallel institutions, some of the provincial organizations and all. It comes from all these bodies. Politburo, it has 25 members. Then it is this has 7 members. So basically it is all about centralization of power, no questioning, nothing of that sort. And even who will be the part of National People Congress, or who will be the part of Politburo, or who will be the part of Politburo Standing Committee, everything is discussed internally. Existing members and previous members, they will discuss among themselves. All of these are closed door meetings, and after that some individual, they are elevated to all these posts. So absolutely no transparency. And this is how Chinese Communist Party, it has succeeded in holding on to its strength. Only the people who are completely dedicated towards the ideology, they are only promoted. And apart from that, naturally there will be factionalism, someone who is close to whom, who is close to whom. So ultimately it becomes an elite coterie. And as Marx had suggested, democratic centralism. So not democracy, but yes, there is centralism. And just turn it, this is not the highest decision making body, but this is just a stamp putting body. Whatever has been decided by the Politburo Standing Committee, the National People Congress will simply affirm to that. So this is how it goes on in case of China. Okay. So all these factors, I think I have already explained it. Since Deng Xiaoping, leadership transition. Every 10 years to ensure collective leadership, prevent emergence of one leader dominant system, and to avert campaigns like Mao's cultural revolution. You see, Mao cultural revolution, it was mainly about, one thing was Mao's paranoia, and another thing was that Mao was saying that somehow for some of the people, this commitment, this dedication to communism, that is slowly coming down. So when Karl Marx, he had talked about one revolution. Then comes Gramsci. Gramsci's structure was completely different, and that is not for the GS students, that is for political science students. But when Marx said one revolution, this Mao Zedong, he said that no, slowly and slowly some of the bourgeois tendencies that tend to creep in between among the elites. So for that we need continuous revolution, one periodic revolution, and for that people would be chosen, that okay, you are someone whose ideology is compromised, and they will be sent back for retraining or internment into the jails or even executed. What for? Because you are not completely dedicated to the ideology. Okay. So in brief, this was cultural revolution of Mao. Okay. In 2018, constitutional amendment was made, and these are some of the steps that Xi Jinping took. His name was included, Xi Jinping Ideas on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics for a New Era. So when you compare that whether the ongoing tension between USA and China, whether it is a cold war or not, there you can mention about this ideological domain, that there is no explicit division between capitalism versus communism, just like during the Cold War. But presently also there is a competing ideology given by Xi Jinping, and his ideology is that Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. So what he has done is that he talks about socialism, but he says that this is not general socialism, but this is socialism with Chinese characteristics. So all these actions against this Jack Ma, some other technical moguls or some other big business houses, The target is to bring in ideals of socialism, that if you have earned, you must pay back to the society. So through this, what Xi Jinping is trying to do is that because of this capitalism in economy but communism in polity, because of this in politics there are a set of elites, in economy also there is another set of elites, but in among the general population there is huge disparity, there is huge economic disparity. So Xi Jinping is trying to address that disparity by putting focus on socialism and taking strong action against all these people, all these big business houses in the name of anti-competitive behavior. And it is expected that this word will be further trimmed down this time and it will be simply limited to Xi Jinping's thoughts. Okay. And another, this was the domestic domain of Xi Jinping's ideas on socialism. The next target of this is its external dimension, its dimension in terms of foreign policy. I think this would be part for something like PSIR students, but still please understand this. In case of USA has focused on something called as democratic. USA says that if we want to establish democracy in the whole world, we need to, if we want to establish peace in the whole world, we need to bring in democracy. So that is why it pushes nations to be democratic. But in opposition to this idea of USA, China has brought in a new method of establishing peace, which it calls as developmental peace. China says that Western model of democracy or US model of democracy cannot be the only way of governance, there can be other ways. And for that, something like Asian values came into existence. Okay. So through developmental peace, what China says is that it is not through democracy, but it is through economic development that peace can be ensured. Through economic development, by putting in money, by ensuring big infrastructure projects, jobs will be created. Overall economic status of people will increase, and once economic status of people increases, naturally peace will prevail, because now they have got stake in stability of the system, and once you have got stake in stability of the system, naturally you will not resort to violence, and thus peace will be established. And it is here that idea of socialism comes into existence. China's main focus are poorer nations, third world, be it in ASEAN, South Asia, Africa, or even Latin America. In most of these nations, people in general are poor, and when a society is poor, naturally socialism will have a greater traction, because socialism talks about a common minimum facility, a common minimum provision for everybody. One of the important reasons why India also in its beginning years affirmed to socialism, and India also continues to affirm to socialism. So this brings in that ideological divide, whether Western model of welfare states or Chinese model of socialism. So through Belt and Road Initiative, China is not only exporting its surplus manpower, its surplus manufacturing capacity, but it is also trying to export its own ideology. a Chinese model of state, a Chinese model of socialism that can ensure rapid economic development and bringing prosperity to the people. Okay, so this is that socialism is. The design is much broader, much bigger than what we think. It is not just about economic gains, it is not about just military dimension by acquiring key strategic ports across the globe along the sea lanes of communication, but it is also about generating that soft power by export of ideology. Okay, then in 2016 Xi Jinping was given as the title of core leader, a title that was only given to Mao Zedong. And a core leader means Xi Jinping is the core of Chinese Communist Party. So any attack against Xi Jinping, any criticism of the Xi Jinping will be criticism of Chinese Communist Party. And in China you cannot go against party. So this is how, by ensuring that he is declared as the core, Xi Jinping shielded all the criticism. Because now, since Xi Jinping is the core, now if you are criticizing Xi Jinping, it means you are not loyal to the Communist Party, you are not loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. And if you are not loyal to the Chinese Communist Party, naturally you can be punished. You can be thrown out of the party, you can be stripped of all your posts and positions. Okay. So this was the design of Xi Jinping. This is how things have happened or things are happening in China. It is not expected that there will be any significant change, but yes, he does face a lot many challenges, both domestically as well as externally. Domestically, we saw what happened because of zero COVID and the protest, the banner on the bridge, it was also against his zero COVID policy. And even within China also, there is criticism of zero COVID policy of Xi Jinping. Real estate collapse, Evergrande crisis, I think we have already discussed it in previous classes. Plummeting economic growth, it has come below 5%. And then because of Xi Jinping going after all these big business houses and the idea of China plus one strategy, you can also term it as diversification of supply chains. Because businesses, they want some sort of stability, and if there are concerns that tomorrow sanctions might be put on China, they won't be able to export from China, naturally they will tend to look at some other markets where they can produce, and be it India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, all these nations, they have emerged as a challenger. Moreover, China plus one strategy, because during COVID every nation saw that what dependence on China could mean. Australia saw that if there is high trade dependence on China, China can weaponize its trade. So that has brought in economic crisis. And naturally, when there will be economic crisis, and yes, unemployment in China has crossed 15%, it is roughly 16 to 18%, which is too high for that society. In case of India, suppose unemployment is that much high, there will be protests, people will vent out their anger, government will listen, people will also think that government is listening, and slowly things can subside, or at the max there will be change of government. But in China, the unemployment is this much high, but you do not have any avenue for protest. You just cannot say what you think. Even on social media, there are strict censorship. So all this situation that is making China something like a pressure cooker with very high pressure inside, and that is why there are concerns within China regarding its stability. Because a segment which has got economic prosperity, naturally they will want to have a say in political sphere. There is another segment of population which is quite large, but today they are not having enough jobs. Because of high inflation, their per capita expenditure is increasing, the value of currency is continuously deteriorating. So because all of these, they are creating challenges for Xi Jinping. Apart from that, externally, because of Russian adventurism in Ukraine, now USA, it is considering China as its key competitor, and against every Chinese move there is a counter move. So all of these, they are creating significant challenge for Xi Jinping, and let us see what happens in next 5 years. Because just in order to divert attention from internal situation, China might go for some sort of adventurism along its borders, and that is why there are concerns within India that northern borders need to be taken care of, need to be gauged very, very carefully, because this is what nations have done. Because even during Mao, something like that had happened during 1962, because even within China at that time it was reeling because of famine, unemployment, poor economic status and all. And to divert that attention, it is said that for diverting attention, Mao did that attack on India. So that is why a similar situation is emerging, and that is why there are concerns regarding stability along the borders with China. Okay, foreign policy, and this was protest. That is all related to China, and we'll be looking into everything next Sunday as well. What are the decisions that were taken at the 20th meeting, if there are any significant changes or there is a continuity, and if there is a continuity, what it will mean. Next topic is related to Saudi Arabia, and this is quite a situation for USA. You see, since the beginning, since 1950s, there had been an understanding between USA and Saudi Arabia. USA was saying that okay, you ensure our energy security, we are going to ensure your regime's stability, and as a result you see that USA goes for talking about democracy in everywhere across the world, be it Russia, be it China, even in the West it is Iran, but not in the Gulf region, Saudi Arabia and Oman, Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, because there was an understanding, regime stability in return for economic energy security. Then after Shell revolution, what has happened is that USA's dependence on Gulf has decreased. Even within Gulf, the realization is there that dependence on USA will bring in its own set of challenges, and as a result we will be seeing a lot many changes. In the past also there have been tensions, but the tensions were not this much extreme. During Arab-Israel crisis also there were tensions, because USA was on the side of Israel and some sort of oil embargo had been put, but at that time also situation was not this. And evolution of this relationship recent decline, it is written over here. So we'll be reading about it in the next slide. What happened was that in USA in November, midterm elections are going to take place. Biden administration, that is Democrats, they are in power and they want to win that election so that they remain in power. Otherwise, it is the Republicans who will get the control and running the administration will be extremely challenging for the Biden administration. And it is a recent information, and Saudi has talked about it in greater detail, that USA wanted to delay this production cut by the OPEC by 1 month, because in that 1 month elections would have been conducted and the impact of fuel price rise because of this production cut, that would not have hampered the US जनरल पॉपुलेशन. सो इसके कारण क्या होता कि यूएसए का ये डेमोक्रेट पार्टी के इलेक्शन जीतने के चांसेस बढ़ जाते. और इन रिटर्न यूएसए ने कहा है कि वी विल बी री-इवेल्युएटिंग, रीअसेसिंग आवर रिलेशनशिप विद द सऊदी अरेबिया, जो कि एक बहुत ही स्ट्रॉन्ग स्टेटमेंट है. इन रिटर्न सऊदी अरेबिया ने क्या कहा है, और यूएसए ने यह भी कहा है कि यूएसए हैज सेड कि देयर वेर सम मेंबर्स विद इन ओपेक हु वेर नॉट willing to go for this production cut, but they were coerced by Saudi Arabia. Quite surprisingly, Saudi Arabia came with a reply and it said that the decision making within OPEC takes place unanimously. There was no coercion and every nation agreed for a production cut, and that was an economic decision. Because we know that IMF, World Bank, all these institutions, they have predicted a recession. So if there is a recession and these groups, these nations, if they continue producing oil, as a result the price of oil will plummet. So just to boost their own economic position and keep oil prices high, they have gone for this production cut. And Saudi is saying that this is not a political decision, but this is an economic decision. अब political कैसे हुआ? We know that Ukraine and Russia, the war is going on. So if production cut is there by the OPEC, naturally this will result in increase in oil prices. Just simple demand supply. Suppose demand remains same and supply goes down, naturally the prices will shoot up. And if prices shoot up, prices will shoot up not only for Saudi Arabia, not only for USA, but even for Russia. And oil is the key exporting item of Russia. So Russia will be having financial advantage and it will be in a better position to support its conflict with Ukraine. What USA was thinking was that if the production level remains same, naturally the prices will go down, and if prices will go down, the support that Russia is getting because of its export of energy resources, that support will reduce and sustaining the war will become more challenging for Russia. ठीक है? So this was the strategy of USA. But when Saudi Arabia is considered as a de facto leader of OPEC because it is the biggest nation in the group and it is the highest producer of energy, globally highest producer of energy. So USA was thinking that Saudi Arabia will toe our line. But however, it has not, and not only this time, there have been many instances where it does seem that Saudi is toeing Russian line, or Saudi is somewhat more closer to Russia. Even if we look at Saudi voting at the UN, in general it has abstained. But Saudi is a ally of USA. So it was expected that Saudi will follow the US line and it will criticize Russia, but it has not. And again its roots go way back, and that have been discussed in the next slide. All of you must be remembering JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Saudi was not in favor of USA signing JCPOA, क्योंकि अगर JCPOA साइन हो जाता तो ईरान के ऊपर जो रेस्ट्रिक्शंस थे, जो सैंक्शंस थे, वो हट जाते और ईरान इकोनॉमिकली स्ट्रांग हो जाता. एंड वी नो दैट इन वेस्ट एशिया Saudi and Iran, they are rivals. This was during Obama regime. एनर्जी वाइज क्या हुआ था? शेल गैस रेवोल्यूशन. तो एज अ रिजल्ट naturally USA dependence on Saudi energy or Gulf energy sources will get reduced. Simultaneously China had emerged as a challenger and USA had gone for pivot to Asia policy. So when USA is pivoting to Asia, naturally its commitment to the Gulf will get reduced, because one is that you are pivoting to Asia and at the same time your dependence on Gulf energy has got reduced. And moreover, in the past also USA has showed that you cannot rely on USA. So इसका नतीजा क्या होता है कि Saudi started searching for new partners and new markets. If your US market has gone down, naturally you will search for new market, and China emerged as that new market because China's energy demands were continuously increasing. Simultaneously, in close vicinity of Saudi, India emerged as a significant economic player, economic powerhouse. So that is the another reason why from a buyer-seller relationship to a joint producer, joint development, Saudi investment in Indian markets, that has emerged. And all these awards and accolades to the Prime Minister, it is because of this only, so that Saudi gets the Indian market for its energy products. उसके बाद क्या हुआ? After Obama came Trump. Trump and the Republican Party, they are pro-Israel, and Israel's enemy is Iran. Trump withdrew himself from JCPOA, put back the sanction on Iran, and Trump's first visit was to Saudi Arabia. So at that time, temporarily, there was patch up between USA and Saudi, and simultaneously, to bring Qatar in line, Saudi put blockade on Qatar, and USA did not oppose it. Then Saudi intervention in Yemen, that was also not opposed by USA. Then what happened was Jamal Khashoggi's murder, and Saudi Crown Prince, he was implicated in that. Joe Biden, a Democrat, during his presidential campaign he said that he was going to make Saudi a global pariah. But during campaign and during administration things are completely different. And even in Saudi there is a de facto change in rule. The king is no more in power, the power has largely been transferred to Prince Salman, and he has a more open foreign policy, be it in case of putting a blockade on Qatar or in case of intervention in Yemen. All these foreign policy decisions are of Prince Salman. So naturally Saudi wants to come out of that shadow of USA. When Biden became the president, first of all he visited quite late, and he did visit, but during when these tensions with Russia were already high, and he did not meet the prince directly, but rather it was said that since prince is the foreign minister, US foreign secretary would meet and Biden would be meeting the Saudi king. So this was yet again seen as a snub. And Biden released the report that had implicated or that had talked about involvement of the prince in Jamal Khashoggi's murder. And yet again USA is trying to revive the JCPOA. Saudi, as we discussed, is trying to search for new partners. In case of India, China, even Russia. So the point is that USA is not at the prime of its economic and military power. There are competing challenges to USA that are emerging, and they are also in the Saudi's neighborhood. So because of all these factors, the degree of trust between Saudi and the USA that has gone down. Even from the Congress it has been said that there needs to be a reassessment of USA Saudi relationship and need to restrict arms export to the Saudi. And the fun fact is that Saudi is the largest arms importer from USA. So this is that complex relationship that I have explained. Let us go through it if something I have missed it. Decision to sign JCPOA and remove sanctions on Iran, Saudi's assertive foreign policy, blockade of Qatar, intervention in Yemen, killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and the Biden administration, it ended the support for intervention in Yemen. He shunned the prince, and USA's reducing engagement in the Gulf and Saudi looking to diversify its security partner. And yes, the last point. In order to restrict Russia, in order to penalize Russia, what G7 was talking about was putting a price cap. And suppose a price cap would have been put, it would not have been detrimental only to Russia but also to Saudi Arabia, because putting a price cap by the consumer would have meant that the power of deciding the price has shifted from producer to the consumer, and Saudi Arabia is a producer. So that is why Saudi would never support such a move, because this was the purpose for which OPEC was created. In 1940s, 1950s, most of the oil resources and its production that was controlled by the Seven Sisters, that is Anglo-US companies. and it is these companies who would decide how much production to be there and how much production cut to take place. And since these companies, they were from some other nations, so indirectly those nations, USA and Britain, they were influencing the oil prices directly. And in order to avoid that and take back the control of oil prices, OPEC had come into existence in 1950s, 1960s. Okay? Yeah, that is what the next slide is. 13 countries, you can mention the names. This can be important for your prelims. Headquartered in Vienna. However, Austria is not a member of OPEC. So remember this, though OPEC is headquartered in Vienna, it is not in Riyadh, and Austria is not a member of OPEC. And even all GCC members, they are also not part of OPEC. Some nation like Bahrain or even Qatar, Qatar said that no, we are not no more focused on oil, I would be focusing more on gas, and that is why it came out of OPEC. Main purpose perhaps was greater independence in its policy formulation. 44% of global oil production and 81% of proven global energy reserves to coordinate oil production, and that is why it is termed as a cartel. A small group of nations collaborating among themselves in order to fix the global prices. However, it's not that nations always follow whatever OPEC says. Many a times they do go as per their own national interests. Okay, in OPEC plus, and already explained, decision is based on unanimity, one member one vote, and these are some additional nations, they are part of OPEC plus. OPEC, and because OPEC plus nations, they are also significant energy producers. So just in order to coordinate among all the energy producing nations so that prices remains at a specific level, because these are the main exporting items. So if global prices remain high, overall export earnings will be more. They will be in a better position to support their economy. So that is why OPEC and OPEC plus came into existence. Okay. Another important news from this week was US National Security Strategy 2022. Both in 2021 and in 2022, name of Pakistan was not there. While Pakistan is the major non-NATO partner of non-NATO defense partner of USA. And in this policy, it has clearly recognized two things. One, about China as a challenger, and second, role of India in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay. So regarding Quad, regarding India-US relations, regarding even India-China relations and cooperation with third nation, you can mention about this strategy. Okay. The strategy clearly says that China has ambition to create an enhanced sphere of influence in the Indo-Pacific and becomes the world leading power. And the three-pronged strategy to deal with China: invest, align, and to compete. Invest in USA economy, align other nations along with USA, a nation like India, a nation like suppose Singapore, even a nation like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, so that they align not with China but with USA, and then to compete. So in last 2 years, USA has recognized that it needs to compete with China. Next point is, and regarding the war, this is some very significant statement. It says that the war has degraded Russia status vis-a-vis not only China but even India and Japan. Next point is regarding India as a major defense partner and India's role in the Indo-Pacific. Statement regarding Quad, that there will be deepening of engagement in case of cyber security, infrastructure and health security. So if a question about Quad comes, you can mention about this. In case of India USA also, in case of India China also, in case of India China USA triangle also, as well as in case of Quad, you can in case of Quad mention this point, in case of Indo-Pacific mention this point, in case of China you can mention about this point. I mean, you have to formulate the language accordingly, but the policy you have to bring in that US National Security Strategy 2018 also underscores role of Quad in case of improving infrastructure and health security, or in case of cyber security that creates opportunity for India and USA to cooperate. ठीक है, उसके आगे this strategy recognizes China as a key challenger, so that creates an opportunity for convergence between India and USA. ठीक है, इस तरह से आप इस तरीके से इन सारी पॉलिसीज को अपने आंसर में इंक्लूड करते हो, और ये आपके फैक्चुअल इंफॉर्मेशन को, आपके कंटेंट को स्ट्रेंथन करता है, एंड फ्रॉम हियर यू कैन एनालाइज एवरीथिंग. ओके, and then this last point, it has increased geopolitical tensions. They are looking to expand their influence across the Arctic region. So yes, as per the strategy, Arctic has emerged, or Arctic is expected to emerge as a new area of geopolitical contestation. Russia is already very much active in Arctic. China has termed itself as a near Arctic power, and Arctic is very much important for China. Why? Because it is expected that in next 10 years Arctic is expected to be ice free or navigable, mainly during the summers. So if Arctic becomes navigable during the summers, naturally the route for European markets or the route for American markets for China, that will open up, and this will be the route across the Arctic, that is a much smaller route for China. One thing, it will be smaller, and second thing is that China will come out of its Malacca dilemma. Otherwise, for going up to the European markets, China would have to cross the Malacca Strait, then whole of Indian Ocean, then Suez Canal, and then it could go up to this Europe. But now, rather than crossing this whole long stretch, what China will be needing is to simply cross the Arctic, and that is a much shorter route, and there are also no choke points. So that is why Arctic will emerge as a new area of contestation, and that has been shown in USA's new nuclear security, USA new national security strategy. अगली बात क्या है? We also know that Arctic has got proven energy resources, and energy is another domain of conflict. China is an energy starved nation. So because of energy, because of trade routes, China getting a shorter trade route and avoiding choke points like Malacca and Suez Canal, that will become very much important for China as well as for Russia, and that is why the Security Strategy 2018 has shown that Arctic is expected to emerge as a new area of contestation between Russia and China. And you can link this point with climate change as well, that in order to prevent climate change or prevent a 2-degree rise, preserving Arctic becomes key. However, as per the National Security Strategy 2022 of USA, Arctic is expected to emerge as a new area for geopolitical contestation between USA, चाइना एंड रशिया. ओके, तो आप इस पॉइंट को क्लाइमेट चेंज में भी ला सकते हो. इंडिया रशिया के बीच में आर्कटिक में कोऑपरेशन है रिगार्डिंग स्टडी ऑफ मानसून, ऑयल एक्सप्लोरेशन, और वहां पे सपोज आर्कटिक इमर्जेज एज अ एरिया ऑफ contestation between USA and Russia, naturally that will impact India USA relations or reduce scope for cooperation between India and Russia. ठीक है, तो आप इस तरह से इस पॉइंट को भी अपने आंसर में इंक्लूड कर सकते हो. लास्ट टॉपिक फॉर द डे, ठीक है ना. दिस स्टेटमेंट हैज बीन मेड बाय यूएस प्रेसिडेंट and he has said that Pakistan is one of the most dangerous nations in the world. It has nuclear weapons without coercion. अब तक इसके बारे में डिटेल नहीं आया है कि वो किस कोएजन की बात कर रहे हैं, बट व्हाट इज एक्सपेक्टेड इज दैट overall administrative cohesion, because we know that even in case of Pakistan its political structure is also fragmented, even its military is fragmented, because Pakistan's military is highly radicalized. So that, and de facto Pakistan nuclear weapons, they are in the hand of military only. So that is why global powers, Western powers, they have continuously raised the concerns that Pakistan nuclear arsenal might fall in the hand of terrorists or jihadi elements. So that becomes another area why on Pakistan, India and USA, India and other Western powers, they need to cooperate, because Pakistan is a radicalized society and there will always be fear that these weapons might fall in the hand of jihadis or terrorists. And that is one of the important factors why the Western powers, they want to remain engaged with Pakistan, and they do not want that any sort of challenge should be there, sorry, any sort of destabilization should be within Pakistan. Okay, concerns. Mark Milley, he is, but he was an important US officer, military officer, and he had said that withdrawal of forces would increase risk to the security of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal, because once jihadis they are completely free, they are out of control in Afghanistan, it is expected that even jihadis within Pakistan, they will get emboldened, and when they get emboldened, naturally they would like to have a control over Pakistan administration, and that is why the threat of nuclear weapons of Pakistan going into the hands of jihadis, that will increase. I have also mentioned about the nuclear doctrine in case of India. I think we have already studied, or you must have studied. We have got no first use. Pakistan does not have any such doctrine, first of all, but whatever we can assess from the statements of various people in key position in Pakistan is that the purpose of Pakistani nuclear weapon is only to balance the conventional Indian military superiority. You see, what happened was that 1971 it cleared that Pakistan is of no match to India. Moreover, Pakistan also got fragmented, and Bangladesh, it had larger population. So now in a situation where you know that you cannot win against a nation militarily, then they went for unconventional warfare, and the part of that unconventional warfare is cross border terrorism. Then India went for nuclear explosion, and at that time the defense minister, he had said that it is mainly against China, but Pakistan said that India is a threat to us. And just imagine that within 21 days of India going for its nuclear explosion, Pakistan went for it, which simply meant that Pakistan was also preparing nuclear weapons. However, USA and who was at that time American president, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton administration had put a blind eye on Pakistan just so that they wanted to have cooperation on Afghanistan. Be it Bill Clinton or prior to that George Bush senior administration, they all had put a blind eye on Pakistan. So Pakistan developed a nuclear weapon, and just 21 days after, you can look for the dates, only 21 days, 3-week gap. India conducted 5 tests. Pakistan said we are no less than India, and they conducted 6 tests. And the purpose of Pakistani nuclear weapon is to offset the conventional superiority that India has. We have a limited spectrum deterrence, which means that we are going to use our nuclear weapon in a specific scenario only. But Pakistan has a full spectrum deterrence. It means for any action they can go for use of nuclear weapons. We have a stated no first use policy. Pakistan does not have any such policy. Pakistan simply says that in case there is a threat to us, there is an existential threat to us, we will be using nuclear weapons. In case of India, there is a clear command and control structure, and nuclear weapons are under civilian leadership. In case of Pakistan, it is de facto under military leadership, under army chief, as well as the collegium of 7 corps commanders within Pakistan. And if your nuclear weapons are within military control, that is a bigger threat, because suppose military starts losing a war, they can go for use of these weapons. So the threat increases, because generally for military it is about prestige. They do not, in general, they do not go for all those detailed calculations, safety of people, life of civilian and all, just like political leadership. So it is always expected, even in case of USA or in case of France, the control is with the civilian leadership. But in case of Pakistan, there is no clearly declared law or in case of doctrine, but it is within the control of military. So because of all these factors, not 7 but 9 corps commanders, so because of all these factors, it creates a challenge, and all these nations, they remain concerned about Indian subcontinent, and they say that this is a nuclear flashpoint, because no other nation in this whole world has such an irresponsible or irrational nuclear strategy. They simply say that this is against India. They will keep, and moreover, you see, Pakistan's strategy was that they will continue to go for cross-border terrorism, and under the nuclear overhang, they won't be able, India won't be able to retaliate. So bleeding India through 1,000 cuts, that was the strategy. That continue to pinch India, continue to attack India in a way that India is not in a position to attack militarily, because they expected that suppose India goes for attacking militarily, other global powers, they will be concerned about escalation and a nuclear escalation, and as a result they would prevent India. Just like in case of, we saw what happened after this parliament attack. India mobilized its army, the western powers, they came, they explained that please do not go, please do not go, please do not go. And even in case of Kargil, that was the strategy. In case of Kargil wars, they expected that we will go in, we will capture some of the important peaks. First expectation was that since they are at height, they will have geographical advantage and India won't be in a position to retaliate. If India goes for significant military retaliation, it is the western powers who will prevent India just because of the fear of nuclear escalation. And there were also messages sent to the Indian Prime Minister that Pakistan can go for a nuclear attack. And during that time, Vajpayee, he had said that I am ready to lose half of India, but Pakistan won't exist on the map of the earth. So this is how Pakistan has always strategized its steps, and that is how Balakot called off Pakistan's bluff. Pakistan had always said that in case of any attack on us, we will retaliate, and there can even be a military retaliation. India attacked, and the attack was not limited to POK, but that was in Balakot, and Balakot is in Pakistan mainland. It is outside of Kashmir. So that was attack on Pakistan mainland, and Pakistan couldn't do much. So that is why Balakot strike has been termed as a crossing the Rubicon, or calling Pakistan's nuclear bluff an important moment in India's strategy towards Pakistan, because no one had thought that between two nuclear powered nations such a thing could happen, because every time the bogey of nuclear war was raised in order to stop India. But this time India went ahead, India took action, and India called off the nuclear bluff of Pakistan, and that is why Balakot becomes important. And suppose a question comes regarding the change in strategy of India in dealing with Pakistan, you can mention about all this, be it post Uri cross border attacks or post Pulwama airstrikes calling off the bluff. Then we stopped engaging with with Pakistan, and we started, previously we were on the defensive. Every time Pakistan would raise Jammu Kashmir, we were defensive. Now what we have done, we have started raising terrorism issue, that talks and terror cannot go together, and every time, be it any dignitary of India talking to anyone, cross border terrorism becomes one of the key issues, because this is something that will naturally put Pakistan on the defensive. So the talks have shifted from Kashmir to terrorism, and that talk or such a topic is in our benefit. So that was about India-Pakistan relations, a brief discussion. I think, this topic is still left. I thought that was the last topic. In case of USA, we saw that US Home Secretary Suella Braverman, she talked that Indians overstay their visa, and that is why she was not in favor of this migration and mobility partnership. And the talk of Suella Braverman, this has riled India, and India has In their personal talks, they have criticized this, that such an insult will not be accepted. The Prime Minister was expected to visit to the UK during Diwali, because Diwali was expected to be the deadline for signing of FTA. But now that won't be happening. And apart from Home Secretary, both the Foreign Minister as well as the Prime Minister of UK, both have agreed that they not only want a FTA with India, but they want even deeper, closer relations with India. And India has also responded likewise. Previously the situation was that all these visa agents, they would go and in batches the visas would be stamped and it will be given back to British citizens, they could visit India. But after this statement, there was statement from the Indian High Commission who said that now you need to have a personal visit. And that is why many British citizens, they had to cancel their what should I say, tickets. And this is being said that the change in a rule has been in retaliation to what the British Home Secretary has said. So this is how now India has started retaliating even to the developed nations. In case of UK, we saw what has happened, and in case of Canada also, regarding referendum 2022, India has categorically stated Canada that Canada must prevent such actions. But the problem with Canada is that the present administration in Canada, it is quite close to the Khalistanis and it takes support from them. The ex-defense minister of Canada, Harjit Singh Sajjan, I think, he was an open Khalistani sympathizer. So that is among the key factors why after Stephen Harper and since coming of Justin Trudeau, there has been a perceptible decline in India-Canada relationships. Okay. And moreover, when Britain is talking about it, regarding its relations with India, just look at the status of Britain. First of all, in last 4 years, you have got, I think, 3 prime ministers, and there is a talk that even Liz Truss could be removed. There is a talk within Conservative Party of Britain. Suddenly, your finance minister has been changed. You have got very high inflation. Your foreign reserves are just above $100 billion, hardly 1 or 1.5 month worth of imports. So when you look at UK, it looks like any other third world nation, a developing nation. But still it talks about like it is still the superpower of the world. And just look at the facts. $50 billion, target to double by 2030, expected that FTA would be signed by 2022. And we are the second largest investor in the UK, and UK is the 4th largest investor in India. So ultimately it would have been in the interest of UK, because we know that post Brexit what has happened, its economy is in a tailspin. Then there has been rising protectionism. Internally also there are law and order situation. And moreover, India, we are a consumption oriented economy ourselves. We have got FTA with Australia, we have got FTA with UAE. So rather than India, it was in the interest of UK. But many a times you see in politics what happens is that I have said that international relations, it is a very practical discipline. But something like that does not happen always. Because rather than practically thinking about national interest, the political leadership, they think about their own narrow personal interest or party interest. And that is why such things happen. Suella Braverman, she has said that this is not why we came out of Brexit. We came out of European Union. So ultimately it is the British people who will have to pay the price, because India is today the 5th largest economy and it is going to be the fastest growing major economy. IMF has also said that there have been structural changes and going forward India will positively influence the global economy as a whole. However, let us see what goes on in the future. This is the fact with respect to India-UK relations. Next are questions for practice. Do write it. The question are immense potential, and this is from the last week notes. India-Iran relations have been constrained by external factors. So you see, when you talk about external factors, do talk about geopolitical tensions in the Gulf region, sanctions, then it is China factor, Iran's nuclear ambitions, all these factors. It's not just that okay, sanctions were there or tensions are there. External factors means think about, sit down, think, structure your answer and then write down the answer. Okay, analyze the statement. So what is the potential, what are the challenges, and what should be the way forward? Okay, and yeah, bring in the facts and all. Okay, force multiplier AUKUS grouping has caused immense unease from Europe to Asia. First, in the introduction, what is AUKUS, how it is expected to be a force multiplier, and how it has caused immense unease from Europe to Asia. Give some examples from Europe as well as examples from Asia. How can AUKUS be beneficial to India? And then in the last part, benefits to India from AUKUS, write down the points and then the conclusion. We shall be looking at its answer in the next class. So that's all for the class from today. Let us see what happens this week, and we shall be coming back for the lecture next week. Do write down the answers. Please follow the suggestions that have been given to you, and I am sure you are going to do well in the domain of answer writing. Thank you very much.